A vast open-world game featuring a map 5 times the size of the previous game. Oh boy, I can't wait. It's time to explore!
Do you remember the time where the idea of a franchise you loved switching to an open world format was a fresh and exciting idea? Yeah, well, me neither. Anytime I hear someone say, "Wow, wouldn't it be cool if this game had an open world?" I have to ask them if they're threatening me and if I need to call the police. We have been fed so much open world slop in recent years, I'm starting to lose my curvaceous figure. And no, I'm not just talking about Ubisoft, although they commit almost all of the sins that I'm about to talk about when designing their open worlds. But in general, it has been a trend in recent years for games to disrespect your time as a player. Even in linear games, there are many segments that are more or less interactive movies with minimal gameplay. This is all done in an effort to pad out the runtime. But usually, linear games with shorter runtimes only do this on a handful of occasions. Meanwhile, open worlds design the entire game around wasting your time. And this isn't about hating on the idea of an open world game. I think if developers take the time to polish and care about the world they're creating, it leads to an experience that can be incredibly rewarding. When open world is done well, it creates emergent gameplay moments that you can't find elsewhere. I would say Red Dead Redemption 2's open world is a good example of a world that feels lived in. You can argue its mission design is linear, but its world design does lead to a lot of very cool, unexpected moments. There's plenty of dynamic encounters, all the NPCs have routines, and the world reacts to your actions in real time. But unfortunately, a lot of games these days design their worlds in the laziest way possible. That includes fetch quests, climbing towers to discover more of the map, boring traversal, a world that doesn't feel lived in. Instead of cleverly guiding the player to objectives, you'll just follow a map marker. Many of these redundant ideas create an experience that feels more like you're knocking things off a checklist than getting lost in a unique world. And the main catalyst for the making of this video was the recent release of Crimson Desert. Personally, I wasn't too excited for the game since I'm so tired of open world games, but I did find myself getting caught in the hype cycle a few days before its launch. It looked like it would be more of an action exploration game instead of a more traditional RPG, which is exactly what I wanted. And once it came out, I started watching reviews to see if it was something that would be worth picking up. And the general consensus isn't that it's a bad game, but it does fall for a lot of the Western AAA tropes that many open world games falter with. It started its life as an MMO and later became a more focused single player experience, but apparently a lot of those early MMO scraps are still there. And who wouldn't want to play a single player MMO, right? Doesn't that sound like a great idea? This means the quest design is extremely simple. It follows a very linear format of go here, talk to NPC, go here, grab the item, bring it back to the NPC, and repeat. One reviewer called it a game for quote-unquote content lovers, meaning there's tons to do, but none of it is engaging. Another person called it a podcast game, a game you can enjoy while paying half attention to it and watching a video on the side. Now, I can't say I've never done that, but it's not something I look for in a game. More so something I do when replaying a game I've already beaten. And there's definitely an audience for that type of game, and I understand why some people might enjoy that. Maybe when I was younger, I could see myself having fun with something like that, but now that I work a full-time 9 to 5, I just can't bring myself to enjoy a game that disrespects my time like that. I'd much rather play a game that's extremely well-paced with a focused 15 to 20 hour experience than one that's over 100 hours but is 60% fluff. And that's one of my core problems with modern open worlds. The worlds themselves are massive and have tons to do, but unlike your type in women, bigger doesn't always mean better, and it leads to worlds that are massive but lack depth. And that's one of my core problems with modern open worlds. I would rather have a smaller world, but with exciting handcrafted things to find in every corner, than wander around a bigger map, but with less engaging points of interest. I've seen people argue that the value proposition a game has to offer is tied to its runtime. Meaning they believe a game that takes 100 hours to beat is worth more or has more value than a shorter game because it has more to do. Now, I would argue that what you do during that time matters just as much as the amount of content a game has. Not to mention that many of these games with hundreds of hours of content have massive retention problems. Does it really matter how much content your game has if most players get bored and they never see it? Resident Evil 4 isn't a particularly long game, but I have hundreds of hours in it because it's so well paced I can always pick it up for another playthrough without ever getting bored. I'll boot it up and tell myself I'm only going to play until the village siege section in the very beginning, and before you know it, I'm spending overtime with Ashley. Meanwhile, I can't force myself to enjoy any Ubisoft open world game, even though it has more content, and to those people, that means it has more value compared to a shorter, more focused game. The problem is pacing is an art form, but many of these games recently seem to only want to focus on that first initial playthrough. This means that they'll include scripted set pieces or slow moments that are only kind of fun on the first time since you don't know what's going to happen, but they're absolute slogs to get through on replays. Linear games might have a section or two that are slower or not as well paced, but open world games have entire quest lines and many points of interest that are nothing but that. You'll spend half your time during a quest being forced to walk or ride a horse slowly next to an NPC while he exposition dumps on you for multiple minutes at a time. And God forbid you try to replay one of these games, these sections are not skippable. Busy work for the sake of busy work is not something that gamers will ever enjoy or at least be fully engaged by. Developers need to understand that open world is not the hype gimmick it used to be. No one is impressed by the size of your world anymore. Maybe if it had a good personality, I'd let you take me home, but size alone is not enough anymore. When open world started its trend, it used to excite players to learn that a franchise they love would be moving to a more open format. But now that hype train is over, players have become aware of the shallow tactics used to create a world that big. Take Starfield, for example. That game boasted that there'd be hundreds of planets to explore, and people got excited at the scope of that.
So Todd, we love you, and this is a safe space. You can let the truth out now. Why did you want to make this game, Starfield? Why did you want to create a new world?
We have dreamt of a game where we can truly break the creation engine in every aspect. Once you've all upgraded your PCs, you'll be able to explore thousands of barren planets, where a real sense of loneliness will start setting in.
Whoa, 100 planets? That's like 99 more than the one planet from Fallout. Doesn't that mean it'll be 99 times better? Wrong! I knew from day one the only way for them to create a high number of explorable planets like that would be for them to either be incredibly bare bones or procedurally generated instead of handcrafted. This means that there will be reused enemy camps, identical activities. If you've seen one part of the map, then you've seen all of it. And what happened on release? The number one complaint was that the exploration in the game was extremely boring and felt like a massive waste of time. The game would have been much better off having 3 to 5 smaller explorable planets, but with significant things to find everywhere you'd go. How cool would it have been if there were 3 to 5 planets on the scale of New Vegas's map with similar depth? Bethesda is certainly big enough now to accomplish a feat like this. Especially since that game was made in a year and a half and Starfield had 8 years in development. But maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself. They announced Elder Scrolls 6 8 years ago as well, and it's just now entering full production. The sun will explode before Fallout 5 ever sees the light of day. So what does a good open world actually look like? Well, let's talk about an open world game that I felt did a good job of letting your curiosity lead your discovery. It's a small game many of you probably haven't heard of called Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, this game does an extremely good job of letting you loose in an open world that doesn't hold your hand or guide you GPS style from interest point to interest point. And I know many of you are probably tired of Breath of the Wild glaze, but it's important to contrast why this world works and why the one in Starfield or even Crimson Desert does not. I would argue the best thing about Breath of the Wild is the lack of handholding. Because when discussing games like Starfield and Crimson Desert, you often hear from people who claim to have souls say that it gets good 8 hours in once you get past the tutorial. 8 hours. You want me to do a full shift at work on a video game? Are you out of your mind?
Who is it? What? I should kick your fucking ass. Who is this?
Can you imagine having that much free time that you can waste 8 hours just to start having fun? You can tell that the people who say this genuinely believe they deserve the right to an opinion. I'm sorry, sir, but when you say something that stupid, the freedom of speech no longer protects you. In Breath of the Wild, you spend maybe an hour going to 3 tutorial shrines before being let loose to go anywhere you want. Then you can do any of the main temples in any order. The objective markers are used more so to start the quest than to tell you exactly where to go during them. And after that, you have to figure out what to do yourself, either from the clues you get from NPCs or the environment. You can even beeline it for the final boss if that's what you wanted to do. That type of freedom is what's so amazing about the idea of an open world. But instead, developers will contrast the freedom you should get from an open world with incredibly linear activities. That juxtaposition between the illusion of freedom and extreme hyperlinearity is what makes for a bad open world. Because if you're not going to let me be free, then there's no point in this game being an open world game. Just streamline it to only be the fun parts instead of spreading them hundreds of miles from each other. Then maybe the game could have been good. It's like sitting in a meeting at work that could have just been an email. Like, why are you wasting my time? But let's delve deeper into the quest marker problem because this borderline ruins game. It's like the yellow paint problem, but arguably 10 times worse. Instead of coming up with creative ways to lead players in the direction you want, most open world games will slap a big ugly waypoint telling you exactly where you need to go. This turns exploration from something that should be unpredictable into a mindless chore. It would be much more immersive and exciting if NPCs had to realistically give you directions to important landmarks that they wanted you to go to. But then that would require real effort when designing the world in a way that naturally guides you from interest point to interest point. And why would we waste time designing the gameplay when we can spend 90% of the budget on the graphics? Like, yeah, the game sucks now, but at least this puddle realistically vaporizes in the sun quicker than it does in a shadow. Doesn't that fix everything? Isn't the game fun now? Do you remember when you first played Skyrim and almost all of us got the golden claw from Bleak Falls Barrow Cave, not realizing that we would need it to progress the main story once we got to Whiterun? It's almost as if that was the game naturally leading you in the direction you were supposed to go without holding your hand the entire way. Now that game did have waypoints, but it also included many examples of visually guiding the player. This does not happen anymore. Modern open world games have no need for player intuition. Breath of the Wild uses this strategy extremely well. All of the important areas or landmarks are extremely identifiable from a distance. This leverages visual exploration instead of brain-off waypoint following. I would argue that the reason we see so many bloated open world games from AAA developers today is because of how easy it is to market that type of game to casual audiences. People don't want to waste their money, and in theory, a game that has tons and tons of content has the appearance of being a more complete package, which means companies are now more easily able to justify that $70 price point. These are games that are no longer designed to be finished, but rather they're designed to keep you occupied. The illusion of having fun and the illusion of freedom. If these guys keep this up, they're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat pretty soon. All right. Now, we've had some fun, and I've been mostly pretty negative, but open world on its own isn't the problem. The general lazy design of them is. And as the leading opinion maker on all things gaming, I'm declaring today that all boring and bloated open world games are no longer allowed to exist. And if you continue to make these types of empty games, there will be severe consequences. Such as me making a video to all 31 of my subscribers telling them that your game is bad. That's $2,170 of lost revenue. You will never recover from a loss as great as that. Anyways, that's all from me. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree in the comments below. Please like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Now get out of here.